Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Friday, November the 14th. And if you think that 2025 is flying too fast, you're exactly right. We're 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving, folks. We're 6 weeks away from Christmas. And we're 7 weeks away from 2026. So if you think that this year has flown by, you're exactly right. It's flown by way too fast. Now, I don't know if that's what happens every year, but this one has really flown by way too fast. But part of it is that we've had a very active presidency. It seems like every day there's something new, every week there's something new, and I think maybe that contributes to it. But it's been an amazing year so far, and there's still more to go. As I say, we still have Thanksgiving and the Christmas season coming up, so there's a lot more in store as we wrap up 2025. Let me begin by directing you to my new post over at the American Thinker today. You can always go to the American Thinker on the right-hand side, and you can see my contributions. And this has to do with the shutdown, where I really believe that what ended the shutdown was when President Trump threw a curveball that the Democrats just had no way of fighting back. And I'm talking specifically about when the president said, we're just going to give the money directly to the consumers and they can buy their own insurance. I think that was in my opinion, the tipping point. Plus, also, I think a lot of Democrats in more competitive districts began to see that this was not really helping and that it would be better just to sit down and negotiate these things and to fight it out like this. So, but I do believe that when President Trump said we're going to give the money directly to the consumers, I think that had an impact because I think people understood that. I mean, the public understands that because one of the greatest problems with Obamacare is the lack of options. I mean, you're basically stuck with whatever is in the exchange, whatever policy is in the exchange. And many of these policies, they don't really give you options. I mean, for example, if you're a 60-year-old woman and you're looking for a health insurance policy, you have to buy the same policy as a 25-year-old man or a young family with children. It doesn't make any sense. What we used to have before Obamacare was choice. And what Obamacare did was it eliminated choice. Because now you basically have one policy in most of these exchanges, one or two policies, and that's it. So I really believe that was the point where this ended, when this shutdown ended, when President Trump put it on that level and said, we're just going to give the money directly to the consumers and let them buy their own policy. And that was one that the Democrats simply couldn't handle. I have a post coming out Saturday morning about what's happening at the BBC and the total collapse of the BBC. It wasn't just now. The BBC has been basically promoting complete fantasy for quite some time, going back to the Iraq War, on climate change. They've just been completely ridiculous. I mean, they've been promoting every sensational climate change idea. They've been calling for the end of the world and, everything's going to get flooded and everything's going to freeze type of alarm, the type of crazy predictions about climate change. I mean, you can believe in climate change, as I do. I think there is climate change, yes. But that and promoting all these crazy ideas, that's another thing. The world is not coming to an end. It's not like in 10 years you're going to be flooded and, North America is going to be flooded. No. That's not going to happen. Even Bill Gates is basically walking back right now. So the BBC became a huge promoter of climate change alarmism. And that's something that had to change. But I think it kept going. And now, of course, what really broke the camel's back, as they say, was the way that they presented that speech by President Trump on the 6th of January, when they omitted some of the things that President Trump said to promote the idea that President Trump was encouraging people to go into the Capitol and break into the Capitol, which, of course, he never said that. He never said that. And the video is there. The video is there. So the BBC has agreed to apologize to President Trump. I'm sure that's making them pretty happy. A couple of their executives have resigned. Okay, that's good. But the real question is President Trump going to sue them for $1 billion? I don't think it's about the money with President Trump. I mean, of course, he'd like to win $1 billion lawsuit, but I don't think it's about the money. He doesn't need the money. But I really think he wants to make a point. And I would love to see this lawsuit go to a trial. Now, he may not win because, at least in the United States, the standard to win one of these lawsuits is very, very high. You have to prove malice. And that gets into a lot of difficult terrain. I don't know about the UK. They tell me that it's easier there, but I don't know. But the bottom line is that the BBC was irresponsible, totally irresponsible. And it wasn't just the BBC. Other foreign networks were also just as irresponsible because they simply picked up on what the BBC was saying. So, look, journalism has really taken a hit here in the last few years. And a lot of it is Trump derangement syndrome. That's what a lot of it is. It's just Trump derangement syndrome. Trump has broken these people. Trump has broken the common sense out of these people. And you have very, very smart people doing very, very stupid things just because they hate Trump. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, my goodness, when are we going to get this Trump derangement syndrome out of our system? It's happening at CBS. It's happening at CBS where this new lady who's running the show now, she's basically come down very hard and said, hey, we're going to be fair about the way we do things. And even in the Washington Post, the owner, Bezos, basically said, hey, guys, we got to change because nobody's reading us. Nobody's reading us. So anyway, the BBC is just an indication, one more indication of this bizarre, totally bizarre journalism that has been practiced, and all of it completely motivated by this irrational hatred of Trump. You can disagree with Trump. That's fine. That's fair. But when you engage in this irrational that leads an organization like the BBC to do something as stupid as to edit a speech to make a political point, well, you end up with a lawsuit, or you end up like the BBC is right now, with executives having to resign and having egg on their face for having made fools of themselves. So again, I don't know whether Trump is going to win the lawsuit. It's always very difficult to win these things. But, he did get money from ABC and he did get money from CBS. Now, those never got to a trial. And I think on purpose, they didn't get to a trial because CBS and ABC, actually it was 60 Minutes of CBS, and ABC did not want to go to a trial, so they settled out of court. I don't know how it'll work out for the BBC, but it is a problem when you have this much Trump derangement syndrome completely infecting a newsroom, and you have people, frankly, doing stupid things. Stupid things, like lying about a speech. That's stupid. That'll get you in trouble, as we're seeing with some of these networks. Well, it's just a couple of quick stories. If you've been keeping track of Seattle, that beautiful city in the Pacific Northwest, they now have a young woman who was elected. She barely won the election, very close election, but anyway, she won. And she is one of these Mandani Democrat socialist types, and her solution to every problem in Seattle is that she's going to increase taxes on the rich and tax corporations. That's her solution to every problem in Seattle. Well, let me just give you a little heads up. That's not going to work. Hasn't worked anywhere. And what you're going to have all these great companies that are based in Seattle, they're either going to pack up and leave, or she's going to fail in her policies. So that's not a good thing. And down in Florida, they're going to be redoing their maps, their congressional districts. And apparently the early indication is that they're going to have 5 more Republican districts down there. So that apparently is going to be happening here in the next few months. And a lot of people are forgetting what I think led to most of this. Everybody's saying Texas. Yes, Texas was the first one that started this. That's true. But The reason Texas started this is because there was a big problem with the 2020 census, and Texas felt like their districts were cheated. And the same thing with Florida. So there had to be a revision of the 2020 census because it didn't really represent the population. And the reality is that the population in the United States is moving from places like California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey to places like South Carolina, Florida, and Texas and Oklahoma. That's where the population is moving to. Ohio is another state that is benefiting from all this crazy stuff. And I thought New Jersey, I thought things in New Jersey would turn out different in that election, but unfortunately they didn't. But anyway, it looks like Florida is going to pick up 5 new districts in their redrawing of the congressional districts and increase their Republican majority by 5. So that'll be a factor in the 2026 election. Now, let me leave you with On This Day in History. Now, I remember reading this book when I was in high school. We had a great English teacher in high school who loved to read who loved to assign, not read, but assign all these great books to us. And one day she assigned a book called Moby Dick by a fellow named Herman Melville. I remember that class. So our English teacher assigned this book called Moby Dick. And I thought it was a very boring book, to be honest with you. I have to confess, I thought it was a very boring book. But back then you had to read these books and do book reports, if you remember. And sometimes you had to get up in front of the class and do a book report. I didn't have to do that, but some of my fellow students got to do it. But it was okay, Moby Dick, the story of the whale and the captain. But then I saw the movie that came out. I saw the movie later after we did the book report. And I saw the movie with Gregory Peck, and that was actually a pretty decent movie. And I thought it represented the book fairly well. Sometimes movies and books go in different directions. So I would say to you that I thought the book was boring. I know we had to read it because that was part of our classical literature education. I understand that. I'm not complaining that our English teacher had us read that book. But man, it was boring. It was a boring book. But the movie was pretty decent with Gregory Peck. So if you're asking me, should you read the book or should you watch the movie? Well, with all due respect to my English teacher, who I haven't kept up with her for a while. So maybe she watches me from time to time. You never know. But with all due respect to my English teacher, I would say read the book and watch the movie. Okay, so read the book, get the book somehow and watch the movie later. But they're both good. They're both really good. So Moby Dick, I always thought that was a great name, by the way. Moby Dick, what a great name that was. And but do watch the movie. Do read the book, I should say. Watch the movie, but read the book. Don't cheat. Do both. And I think you'll enjoy. But man, I remember those days in high school when we had to read these books and do book reports. I guess those were the days. I don't know if they still do that anymore, but I wish they did because you were introduced to all these pieces of literature that that was good for your education. It was good for your general upbringing. I see why we got a note from our friend Sally saying that she had to read Moby Dick as well. Okay, well. I guess I'm not the only one. But anyway, thank you very much for taking my advice on Moby Dick. And do read the book if you get a chance. It's a little boring, but do read the book if you get a chance and watch the movie and get yourself caught up with Moby Dick. Gregory Peck did a great job in that movie, Moby Dick. Have a great weekend, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas. The Cowboys are not playing this weekend. They're playing Monday night. So what are we going to do Sunday afternoon? Well, we'll figure it out. Have a great weekend, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.